between physical and psychological hunger. Who finds that hard sometimes? Yeah, well, we're human beings, so we don't always have that sensation just to eat when you're hungry, finish when you're full. So sometimes for some people, the first thing is getting back to the basics and thinking, maybe before I eat, I'm just going to wait to feel the signs of hunger. So is it your tummy grumbling, a bit of a gnawing sort of feeling, and then to be able to allow yourself to eat. The other times when you're not hungry, it tends to be instant. And I've put here, it tends to be called head hunger. So who has head hunger? You sort of just eat and you tell yourself you're hungry, but you haven't given yourself time to think, am I hungry, or is it for another reason? So any comments about that? Who finds that relates to them? Yeah. So for some people, when you're talking about you may be at a plateau, maybe it's just going back and looking at how you're eating, not so much of what you're eating. And the more you fine-tune these little barriers, that can actually help you to move forward. So what I've put there is underneath, it's got strategy. So for you, you might even have a think about, does that relate to me? What would my strategy be? And it might be from now until the next week, if that relates to you, maybe actually just to be aware of certain times when you're eating to think, am I hungry? Is it a peckish feeling? Is it a ravenous feeling? Or is it just a head hunger sort of sensation? So have a think about it. That's just the first thing. The second thing is, this is where you can be really clever and be a real detective in your own life, and it's trying to identify patterns. So it's really looking at when do you overeat? Who's pretty much well aware of when the times when they do overeat? Yeah, I've put some common ones here. I just thought of it that has related to me in the past and my clients. Here are a menu of options. Do any of these relate to you? At night when you're alone, is that a time? Remember, I think I said in the first session, it's the werewolf syndrome. It's when the sun goes down, the moon comes up and the fangs come out. So maybe there's some werewolves in the Kiama Downs area. Eating when you're driving. I was doing a workshop in Narooma actually yesterday, and I had a couple of nurses who are community nurses, and they said it's really hard not to eat in the car because they're going to see patients from house to house. And they said normally I have the best of intentions of just to eat a snack and lunch, but then they'll take a packet of something, and then what happens to the packet? It's gone in a few minutes. Anyone a culprit of eating in the car? It's something to do if you're driving up to Sydney, whatever. Driving down to Narooma. Eating in front of the television, or eating in front of the laptop or the computer. So that's a paired association of eating while you're being distracted. Who finds that hard? Before you know it, the food's gone. And it's just something that I guess a lot of people are becoming more familiar with, because sometimes there's TV whilst eating. So for some people that I've actually worked with families to set a new family of rule of no eating in front of the TV in terms of meals. You have the meal at the dinner table, then you watch the TV. Anyone tried to do that before? It does do that? That's my rule at my home, and my other half's not very happy with it, but I win on that one because I cook the dinner anyway. Social gatherings. Is that when you find you're overeat? Does anyone get distracted, you're too busy having a good time, and then calorie amnesia sets in? Who's the opposite, that when you're in a social situation you tend not to eat much because you're around people? Anyone the opposite? For some people it's more when they're alone that they overeat, as opposed to when you're socialising, because that's a distraction. Anyone relate to that? Okay, so it depends on the mood. It could be the need to finish what's on your plate. Who's grown up in the sort of,
Yes.
we can't afford to we can't afford this, you've got to finish what's on your plate. So certainly that's kind of a learned association as well. So maybe it's really thinking, do I put less on my plate, or do I stop when I'm full? Do I eat slowly? Remember we talked about metabolism, eating, for about, or waiting for your hormone, your appetite hormone to set in. It takes about 20 minutes to realise that you're full. So sometimes it's actually eating slower to help you not eat everything on the plate. So I want you to think about with that one. You might circle which ones apply to me, or maybe there are some that I haven't mentioned. They're just a few. And I want you to think about, is this something that you could do to overcome that? Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Ever had an intention of changing one of those, and then it's too late, you haven't even put a plan in place? So you're planning to do something before you go to a barbecue, or you're planning to do something when you get home so you don't overeat in front of the TV, but then life gets in the way. Yeah. Anyone got any strategies of what you've been trying to do now, or what you could try?
I always think, I don't know, after dinner I always not.
Yep.
And I decided, well, I can go.
Yep.
And I don't really miss it, but I need still something sweet, so I'm going on to chewing gum.
Wow.
I've never chewed gum in my life, but I just get by, when I'm sweet chewing gum, and then I find that satisfies me.
So that works for you. Great. Okay. Excellent. So that works for you. Would that not work for anyone else? Yeah, okay, so it will work for me, I've done it before, but other people it doesn't work. So can you see, whenever you read recommendations that are sort of generic, always think, does it relate to me? And if it doesn't, change tact. Great. I had one lady who wanted that real sweet, she had that sweet craving in the evening, and she was eating around the problem. So she was saying, I've cut out chocolate and cut out sweets, so she'd have a yogurt and a slice of raisin toast, then have a pear. She was actually eating more calories than what she started. So I said, what would it take to be satisfied? And she said, maybe just a lollipop. If I suck on a lollipop, it will take me about 20 minutes. She doesn't just eat them as soon as she puts them in her mouth, as I will do. I just eat it and go, well, where's the next one? So yeah, for her it was a lollipop. For other people it's chewing gum. Anyone else have sweet cravings in the evening, or maybe it's savoury? Yeah. Have you tried a strategy?
Yeah, I'm starting one to dried apricots.
Dried apricots. Great. So for some people it's dried apricots. Who would respond to dried apricots, or who would eat the whole bag, or who would not like that?
I bought you prunes and tried to eat 5.
There you go. They're nice, aren't they?
So hard.
Yeah. So there you go. So you can see that different things work for different people. So it goes back to the concept of you're all trying the same strategy of satisfying that sweetness, but you've all got different strategies. Anyone else got a different strategy?
I found it at work, just sitting in front of the computer constantly. I used to snack.
Yeah.
But now I just have a bottle of water and I just drink water instead. Just something.
So for some people it's replacing that with just something to do. Yeah, that's one of the tips I've got here. So it's sometimes looking at an alternative to the other things you're putting in your mouth. So water and coffee.
Well, mine's the savoury, so I just grab lots of walnuts.
Great, so walnuts. Yeah. And good poly, so your omega-3s and your walnuts, as you know. So it could be a replacement. Great. Anyone stuck with, when you're identifying the patterns, of what to do? Or do you think that you've got a strategy? Anyone struggling with this one? Because that's, sometimes it's just being aware of the pattern, but then you've got to think of a strategy. Penny?
Common one for me is if I feel overwhelmed, I'll go and I want to go and eat something just to escape, and then I can come back and then I'm calm again. But
So what you're saying is, when you get a bit overwhelmed, then
or too much,
then you might go on
it's an
over it.
escape. Okay, I'll go and eat. Then come back, right, clear mind.
Okay. So good point. You've actually anticipated the next point. So turn over. What you're saying there is, if you look at the pattern of when you're eating it, maybe when you're a little bit stressed, so then you've got to look at what is the trigger. So is it when you get anxious, when you get angry? Sometimes people have been caught unawares of a friend rings and says, let's go out for dinner, and you get put on the spot, and that can sometimes cause the overeating.
For me, it's overwhelmed. Like, I've still got to do that, have a some of that, which order?
That's right.
Overwhelmed.
So what you're feeling, so yeah, definitely, I'm going to draw this up, so I did this last time, and I'm going to give you a little technique called mindfulness, because that actually can help with worrying thinking. So when you're feeling anxious, what goes through your mind? It doesn't have to be extreme anxiety, but when you're feeling a bit anxious, what goes on in your head, with your body? Tell me. Everything. So do you feel that you sort of catastrophise things? You've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It's an understatement. And you start to interpret things in bigger ways. Penny, what happens? Do you find you get body reactions in terms of heart rate goes up, you might just race?
With mine, it's not so much anxious, I'm not really an anxious person, but I'm just, for me, it's definitely overwhelming. Okay, and to get up, walk, where do I go? Kitchen. Okay.
Yep.
Kitchen.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a form of anxiety, but it doesn't seem like anxiety. So you might be different. So when you look at with feelings, sometimes we're not aware that you might be a little bit emotional. Emotional is not that term of whoa.